If the constant onslaught of revelations about the Trump administration's relationship with various foreign nationals doesn't already give you gray hairs on a daily basis, try watching Active Measures, a damning concentration of allegations that will undoubtedly leave liberals pulling those hairs out in frustration. A methodical look at Vladimir Putin's rise to power and the lattice work of criminality that has enveloped governments worldwide. Jack Bryan's documentary enlists a who's who of high-profile experts and insiders, including Hillary Clinton, John Podesta and more, for a brutal dressing down of worldwide, metastasized corruption that falls short in laying out straight its particularly slippery bag of snakes only by suggesting the solution is to cut off their tails, not their heads. Opening with a brief but potent biography of Putin and winding through an abridged but detailed list of transgressions to which his administration is connected, Bryan's film explores the often intangible but wildly destructive tactics hostile governments employ as active measures, including propaganda, cyberattacks and agents of influence, murdering journalists, opponents and in some likely cases, allies and even innocent civilians. Putin consolidated power under Boris Yeltsin before claiming the mantle of leadership over post-Soviet Union Russia, developing strategies that would later be used to undermine the U.S. election against newly liberated countries like Georgia. Also read, Trump ignores advisors' subtle message about Putin. Do not congratulate. Bryan and his co-writer Marla Clements connect the dots with methodical precision and minimal sensationalism, although they hardly need to over-dramatize connections between Putin and notorious Russian mobster Semyon Mogilevich, especially given the numerous flunkies, and their various criminal acts, who overlap the pair's Venn diagram of manipulation and malfeasance. Putin and Mogilevich's relationship to Trump's mysteriously indefatigable gift for failing upward is easy to track, though the filmmakers possibly overemphasize the current president's ability to foresee the many ways he was being manipulated, or maybe just the distance at which Putin and co. recognized he even could be a potential leader. Certainly, and with the added benefit of recent comments made by Forbes reporters about Trump's obsession with their annual list of power players, the film makes an effective case for the abject corruption of Trump's dealings in the 1980s, when Trump Tower served, in several cases, according to successful criminal prosecution, as a money laundering paradise for shell companies to buy and sell condominiums without identifying themselves. Later, Deutsche Bank, a company with significant ties to Russia, supported many of Trump's endeavors long after they imploded or otherwise failed. Watch video. Stephen Colbert congratulates Putin for his win by the most made-up votes. Most damning, though, is the sophisticated way that Bryan and Clements lay flat the history of technological attacks launched against oppositional regimes, and how brutally impactful they were because of attackers' profound understanding of the psychologies of the socio-cultural ecosystems into which they were released. Footage from a Cambridge Analytica presentation, paired with interviews from experts on Russia's history of cyberattacks, elucidates the depths of attackers' knowledge about the way that various cultures work, and in particular, how the unrelenting onslaught of fake sites and phony Facebook posts, among other disseminated stories, preyed upon our specific vulnerabilities as Americans to disseminate materials that would fundamentally undermine our trust in particular candidates, our government, and the system as a whole. The extra chill comes when an interviewee points out that literally nothing has been done to slow the spread of this attack since Trump took office. Also read, Joe Scarborough, Republicans doing the bidding of Vladimir Putin and his intelligence agencies at 110 minutes. The film's laser-like focus keeps its talking heads from droning on too long, but also from relaying some of the anecdotal details that are probably juicier than they are relevant. One that makes the cut is Clinton's observation that Putin likes to manspread, one of the very few instances where she digresses in any way from essential information, but like with many other documentaries attempting to chronicle our turbulent recent history, we seemed to have moved beyond an era when such thing as a clean or definitive ending exists. At the very least, we're not yet at anything that resembles one. Not that the film doesn't try, citing semi-successful examples in Georgia and Russia. The filmmakers end with a call to arms that suggests the divided electorate, the citizenry of the U.S., rise up and demand change, for our officials to hold themselves and their colleagues accountable and to do something to secure free and fair elections. If there's anything that Active Measures does most effectively, it's to demonstrate the depths and the breadth of the corruption, the criminality, the immorality operating in contemporary politics, and after seeing what we're up against, the last thing people may want to do is to get more involved. Donald Trump has a habit of using kind words to describe authoritarian world leaders, despite issues like human rights abuses, anti-democratic policies, and violence against their own people. Here are 10 that Trump has been positive on, either in his words or through his actions. Getty Images. Rodrigo Duterte, Filipinos. Trump had a phone call with Filipino President Duterte, and apparently in an unscripted moment, invited him to the White House. Duterte is an admitted mass murderer, known for his extrajudicial killings of hundreds of drug users and his battle against the drug trade. Getty Images. Saddam Hussein, Iraq. Trump said during his campaign that the Iraq War was a failure, and the world would be better off with Hussein in power. He was a bad guy, really bad guy, Trump said during a December 2016 rally. But you know what he did well? He killed terrorists. He did that so good. They didn't read them the rights. They didn't talk. They were terrorists. Over. Today, Iraq is Harvard for terrorism. Trump also said of Hussein using chemical weapons to massacre as many as 5,000 Iraqi Kurds. Saddam Hussein throws a little gas, everyone goes crazy. Oh, he's using gas. Getty Images. Kim Jong-un, North Korea. Despite North Korean missile tests and even talk of potential war with the country, Trump still has kind words for Kim. And at a very young age, he was able to assume power. He said, a lot of people, I'm sure, tried to take that power away, whether it was his uncle or anybody else. And he was able to do it. So obviously, he's a pretty smart cookie. Getty Images. Vladimir Putin, Russia. Trump has infamously never said an unkind word about Putin, a leader known for human rights abuses, since becoming a candidate for president. As a candidate, Trump repeatedly called Putin a stronger leader than President Barack Obama. You can say, oh, isn't that a terrible thing? I mean, the man has very strong control over his country, Trump said at a national security forum in 2016. Now it's a very different system, and I don't happen to like the system, but certainly in that system he's been a leader, far more than our president has been a leader. Getty Images. In an interview with MSNBC, Trump didn't change his tune when reminded that Putin has had journalists and dissenters killed, instead saying, I think our country does plenty of killing. Also, Bashar al-Assad, Syria. Although Trump bombed a Syrian airfield in April in response to a gas attack on Syrian civilians, he previously praised Assad as being a stronger leader than Obama, and for fighting ISIS. I think in terms of leadership, he's getting an A and our president is not doing so well, Trump said in September 2015. Getty Images. Wikimedia. If these politicians went to the beach and didn't do a thing and we had Saddam Hussein and if we had Gaddafi in charge, instead of having terrorism all over the place, we'd be, at least they killed terrorists, alright, Trump went on. And I'm not saying they were good, because they were bad, they were really bad, but we don't know what we're getting. Getty Images. Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Turkey. Turkey narrowly passed a referendum that grants Erdogan a great deal of additional powers, pushing the country away from democracy and toward authoritarianism. Trump called Erdogan to congratulate him on the victory. He also invited Erdogan to the White House. Sky News. Benito Mussolini, Italy. Trump retweeted a quote from the fascist Axis power dictator, then defended it in an interview with NBC's Meet the Press. I want to be associated with interesting quotes, Trump said of the retweet, and stated it didn't matter who said it. Twitter. Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Egypt. Though it's known that el-Sisi has ordered the murders of his opponents and has clamped down on dissent and women's rights, Trump invited the Egyptian president to the White House in April. During the meeting, Trump said, I've had a deep appreciation and admiration of your unique personality, especially as you're standing very strong in the counterterrorism field. Getty Images. 1980s Communist Chinese government. Trump's authoritarian praising comments go back decades. He called the Chinese government's 1989 massacre of protesters a show of strength. When the students poured into Tiananmen Square, the Chinese government almost blew it, Trump said in a 1990 interview in Playboy. Then they were vicious, they were horrible, but they put it down with strength. That shows you the power of strength. Getty Images. Donald Trump has a habit of using kind words to describe authoritarian world leaders, despite issues like human rights abuses, anti-democratic policies, and violence against their own people. Here are 10 that Trump has been positive on, either in his words or through his actions.